Hello, my dear audience. We are now on to politics part two. I feel like the last video I talked about a lot of the big enchiladas that not only occur to me on a daily, if not weekly basis, but these were probably the bigger things when it came to environment, when it came to the Second Amendment, all that kind of stuff. So I did look up on the internet other political topics or issues in the United States, and there's a lot, but I pointed out a few more that I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to try to get through this quick as possible while I'm still trying to make my point. So, continuing on with my political beliefs, the first thing that I have on my sticky note is healthcare. Now, there are people out there who believe that healthcare is a universal right. And I look at countries like Germany and Canada, even Russia has free healthcare. Japan, when I was in Japan, I learned a little bit about their healthcare system. Not only is it free, but they are highly against drugs, which, as far as the drug aspect of it goes, I think is great. There are some medications out there that are absolutely, this is going to better you, this is going to make you feel better. However, there are also drugs out there that their side effects do a lot more damage than what the medication is intended for. As a firefighter and first responder, I've been on calls, more specifically attempted self-deletion calls, where we get there, hey, what's going on? Are you okay? We take vitals. By the way, are you on any medications? And more often than not every time, but more often than not, they present to us 3, 4, 20. I had one guy, 20 different antidepressant medications. And it's like, well, no wonder you're acting this way. You're on drugs. These drugs are altering your hormones. They're altering your mental status. These drugs are probably conflicting each other. Everything's out of whack. Their fentanyl is actually used in hospitals. Now, there's a difference between medical fentanyl and street fentanyl. Medical fentanyl is made differently and is given in very small dosages compared to what you might get on the street. But we're still giving a patient a very highly addictive drug, say with Oxycontin. So now you got a whole population who is on drugs, antidepressant drugs, anti-anxiety drugs. More often than not, they're doing more harm than good. So that's the drug aspect of it. That's just a brief overview of how bad drugs are. The other thing is, I feel like universal healthcare only works for certain countries. It don't work for Canada. And here's what I've heard about Canada. And as someone who's part of the VA, I can relate. It is great that there is free universal healthcare in Canada. However, because everyone wants to get seen, there are very, very long wait times. It could be many months, many years to get seen for something very small. And as someone who's part of the VA, I've also witnessed that where, hey, you guys there was something wrong with my kidneys last year. Okay, we need to do an ultrasound. We need to do there was another thing they need to do. I had to wait 5 months to get seen. 5 months. And the thing is when you make something free and accessible, everyone's going to try getting on board, taking advantage of it. I've heard stories of people, people that, I have problems sleeping, and they keep going back to their healthcare provider. And I'm still looking at Canada when I say this. I need, for example, melatonin. I need a lot of melatonin. They give them melatonin. They don't even use the melatonin. They turn around and sell it. And then they come back, I'm out of melatonin. I need more melatonin. And they just keep giving them the melatonin. Now, as far as the checks and balances go in these other countries with universal healthcare, I don't know how strong or weak, if any, checks and balances there are when it comes to treating patients, but these are stories that I've heard. Now, here's the flip side of it is in America, you got to pay for healthcare. And I'm under the impression that a lot of the Medicare companies in the United States know that we have a high population. We have a high population of obesity, a high population of people that don't eat well, a high population of people that are depressed, anxiety, cancer. We are leading number one for heart conditions. And I cannot help, but from my point of view, I cannot help that all of these Medicare facilities came together and went, hey, let's really jack up our prices. Like, everyone needs us. We can take advantage of this. We can take advantage of this. But the other aspect of it is doctors need to get paid extremely well. Nurses need to get paid extremely well. I look at how much nurses get paid in Washington, and they get paid really well. And I look at all the things that they need to know medical wise, and yeah, you better be paying them well because of all the stuff that they need to know and need to do. Angel, one of my exes, she was a nurse. She had 2 years of nursing school. As far as I'm aware, she's still going to school for nursing, even though she already has a nursing job. And she's told me stories of, yeah, I've had to wipe people's asshole. I had to be there when people throw up. Very gross stuff. Yeah, I would hope that she's getting paid well. I would hope that nurses get paid well, and doctors get paid well, and the equipment's expensive, and the facilities are expensive. So like that's kind of a caveat to my argument. But I still cannot help. Here's something that happened to me. I had to get the COVID vaccine for my job, for my firefighting job. And I was not very happy about that. I felt like I was being forced to take a vaccine for a virus that I deemed as equal as the common cold. And I guess I can talk a little bit about COVID since we're talking about healthcare. But I got the J&J shot, and I had a absolutely terrible reaction. I was in pain, throwing up. I felt like I was turning into a rock and being set on fire at the same time. I actually called J&J screaming, I'm in pain, what the fuck did you guys do to me? Oh my god, it really sucked. And the guy could only do, I called a guy who worked for J&J. All he could do was take notes and like, okay, this is your signs and symptoms, this is very interesting. And I know it was from J&J because literally 12 hours after I got the shot, I woke up just screaming in pain. And again, all I can describe is I felt like I was turning into a statue and being set on fire. I woke up the next morning like this. It hurt to move, and then the latter half I was starting to throw up. So it was pretty bad. Fast forward a few more days, I was still having reactions. I was getting very bad headaches, muscle aches, muscle cramps. I felt like I was being jabbed with needles. My head was throbbing. I felt like someone was ripping my brain open. And for those of you who say I'm exaggerating, ask other people, specifically men, because I'm a guy, what their experience with J&J was like. Because I've heard people died from the vaccine. At least a very few have died from the vaccine. Reactions. Everyone's got different reactions to different vaccines. Respectfully, I hope that the audience understands. This is just my experience. So I did end up going to the hospital a few days later. They took an x-ray. They gave me some saline. They took my vitals. It was a $1,400 check. $1,400 bill. And I was like, all of that for an x-ray, a set of vitals, and some saline. Just for the doctor to tell me, you're having nerve reactions, which, considering you got J&J, is actually kind of common for the vaccine. No shit, doc. I actually already knew that. I had to look into each individual vaccine before getting it. And that was one of the things that I saw about J&J. Something about, it apparently attacks your nerves. And I'm going off of old information. I haven't really looked into COVID since 2021. But $1,400 just for that. Now, my grandpa, he is extremely liberal. And extremely liberal. Like Joe Biden to death. And what I mean by that is I'm that guy would fall on a blade for any Democrat, specifically Joe Biden, is what I meant to say. And I disagree with that. He doesn't know my political affiliation. He's probably never going to watch these videos. But I asked him, like, do you think this is justified? He goes, no, that's way too high. Okay, but do you think making it free would fix anything with it, considering everything going on? No, it's too high, but it shouldn't be free. And it mostly went back to the whole it could be taken advantage of. Anything that's free is going to get taken advantage of. So I'm kind of like a moderate when it comes to it shouldn't be this expensive, but it shouldn't be free. It should be fair, where the common person can afford it, but it ain't free where people are taking advantage of it. And for the people that say, well, I believe in universal health care because it's a natural right. Okay, I don't see any animals in the wilderness have health care. And if it is a right, if health care is a right, then that means it should be free. We live in a country where the Second Amendment is a right. So by default, guns should be free and ammo should be free. So you can kind of see how there's like a conflict of interest. Another story that I'd like to share with you before moving on is I had a friend in high school. I joined the military. I leave for 4 years. I come back to Washington. And I actually caught up with her when I got back from the military. And apparently during my 4 years of being gone, her health really rapidly declined. And I was like, wow, I'm really sorry to hear that. How are you being treated? Oh, the state's taking care of me. The state is paying for all my treatment, blah, blah, blah. Wow, that's really convenient. I went over to her place. She wanted to show me like her new dog. She got new gaming computer. I walked into her place. There were over 7 dogs. There was dog shit everywhere. All the windows were closed. The blinds were closed. No sunlight. There was it was either Frito or Dorito salad, so it was like salad with Fritos in it. Molding. It's been there for a week. Cans of Red Bull everywhere. Spoiled milk. Trash everywhere. It was damp in the room. And I go, time out. You're having all these medical problems because you are living like a hoarder. You have all these dogs crapping everywhere. You're eating crap. You're drinking crap. You are indoors sitting all the time. Do your doctors know how you live? Oh, no, they can't figure out what's wrong with me. They should see how you live. And my tax money is paying for this. My tax money is paying for you to sit here as your physical health gets worse. You know, like, don't get me wrong. I game. I got a gaming chair. I got this computer that I'm on. You know, I like the game, okay? But I still go out and work. I still go out and work out. And I make it a very high priority when I go to the grocery store to buy healthy foods. You know, so anytime I play video games, I've earned that. Or some people can argue that, well, I'm an adult. I can game as much as you want. Yeah, you're right, you can. But you need to take into account how it's going to affect you physically, mentally, financially. Are you going out and working? Are you making enough money? Is sitting around all day good for you? Are you eating while you game? Because there are people that they just go hours of gaming and they don't even eat. They maybe get up to use the restroom. Maybe. So there are people out in the United States, and I'm looking at the United States now, that are blatantly just lazy and they sit around all day. Their physical health gets worse, and then they apply for, well, medical assistance or financial assistance for medical. And the taxpayer who goes out and works, or for the people that both work and work out, we have to pay for their laziness. And it's absurd. I believe that if you are going to apply for financial help when it comes to medical, by all means, there should be programs like that. I believe in that. There should be programs like that. But I believe that you should be thoroughly evaluated, and if not, some rights should be taken away. Hey, if we're going to treat you, we need to see how you're living. Because we are not going to treat you if you're just going to go home and pretty much fight against the treatment, fight against the medication. You're wasting our tax money and you're wasting the doctor's time. So moving on, I put LGBT. I will say that this was 2015, and I remember this because I was in Germany. The Congress, I believe Obama was president, gay marriage was made legal. And I don't know why at the time, but when I saw this, I was very mad and frustrated. And I remember telling myself, like, oh man, is this, what America stands for? And, I can't believe this. Looking back on it, I don't have a problem with gays or lesbians or bisexuals. I can say that when I was in the military, one of my best buds that unfortunately offed himself, well, he was very gay, one of the funniest dudes that I worked with. And he not only made me a better firefighter, but he made me a better airman back when we were both in Oklahoma. And I miss him dearly. I actually have a memorial bracelet wrapped around my truck gear selector, and I'd like to think that wherever I go, he comes along with me. So I don't really have a problem with gays, lesbians, or bisexuals. Where I start to get a little iffy, and I'm going to try to be as moderate about this as possible, is there are people out there who identify as a different gender. And there are two sides to this that I feel. And I can go on and on about one side, and it's going to sound very derogatory up until I get to the second point. So for those of you watching this, bear with me. So for those people who identify as different genders, you look at the history of how this was accepted into society from the 1990s prior, and these people were deemed special. They were deemed mentally special. They weren't really allowed into society. I've heard stories of them being in like insane asylums or some kind of corrections facility, letting these individuals know, like, no, you cannot identify as a different gender. So there is a little bit of a mental disconnect from reality if you have a guy identifying as a girl identifying as a guy, or other people identifying as any other gender. And you start to hear about a lot of the different ridiculous genders. Kind of one of the hypocrisies that the left keeps eating themselves over is if you were to ask like 10 leftists, let's say you ask 10 extreme leftists how many genders there are, they are going to give you 10 different answers. 72, 210, 500, 900. And then they're all going to look at each other. No, there's not, there's not this many. There's this many. And they're going to start eating each other. And I can't help but wonder, but what happened to just two genders? Like, what happened? And I had a friend, she identifies as non-binary. I don't know what she's doing these days. This is back when I moved in Washington. She identified as they, them. And I was a little ignorant on this topic. And it was just kind of like, okay, well, enlighten me. And she went on and on and on about the different genders and why you should respect it and all that kind of stuff. And, I was willing to respect it then, and I was really willing to respect it after she was done giving me her spiel. She must have been talking for, I think, somewhere between 30 to 45 minutes. The problem, though, is people identifying as different genders is supposed to make these people feel good. If you acknowledge how someone identifies, it makes them feel good. It gives them affirmation. I remember a situation in the military. In the military, we have this thing called inclusivity briefings or inclusivity meetings. And usually it is a commander or a chaplain that comes in and a brief overview. They talk for an hour, but a brief overview is don't be racist, don't be sexist, don't sexually harass people, and be all inclusive. And being a part of a fire department where a lot of these guys are gung-ho, men, conservative, we are not in the 60s anymore. Racism is bad. Yes, people should not be touching other people or sexually harassing other people. Don't do that. But when it came to you need to be all inclusive, these men have been in the military for a very long time. Back when the military was actually a little bit stronger than it is today, at least mentally. And when it came to accepting other people outside of race, and we started moving into like the gender aspect of it, they were like, hell no. We need mentally strong people in this military to fight our adversaries. What does accepting one's gender have to do with the mission? What does it have to do with conflict or combat or wars? Our adversaries do not care which gender you are. Why do we have to accept other people, and in their words, not only accept other people's genders, but affirm it? When we're not here to do that. We are here to be firefighters. We're here to be airmen. We are here to get ready for the next conflict. We are here to train. Why do I need to go out of my way from all of those important aspects to recognize someone who was a guy now identifies as a woman? And that's just the military aspect of it. Going back to my friend in Washington who identified as they, them, they were going over all the genders. It's like, I'm not going to remember all of these genders. I can't respect every single one of these genders. It's unrealistic to the point where I have other things to worry about. I have other things to worry about, such as my own personal finances, making money, working a job, what am I going to eat? Ever since a certain president got elected, I'm pretty sure a lot of people can confirm that, hey, prices have really gone up these past few years. And I've been having to use my credit card a lot more because I've been really concerned as far as finances go. But there are people out there who say, hey, don't remember to accept other people's genders. And it's like, that's not really a priority for me. That's not a priority for a lot of people. And even if you do, and I've seen stories like this on Twitter where you can ask someone their gender, and the other person's still going to get offended. How dare you ask? Or how dare you assume my gender? Like if you want me to get on the whole gender train, I don't know how to ask you anything without you getting offended. Or even if you get the gender right, they're still going to get offended. Referring back to a video I saw of some transgender barista, and some guy guessed, oh, you look like a they, them. And I was so offended that they were right. And it's like, no matter what you do, you guys are going to get offended. I'm not even going to try if you guys are going to get offended. And I'm also looking back at the argument that I made with the last video between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, when there was a lot of similarities, and you got people on the left berating me for how dare you assume it's Joe Biden. It's like, but there's a lot of similarities, and if you're going to be vague about the comments, why are you blaming me for taking an actual genuine guess? So the other aspect of it that will kind of blow the other aspect of it is this is America. And, I don't agree with the whole LGBT thing. I don't agree with the different genders and all that kind of stuff. But I believe that America is the land of freedoms and the ability to choose. And if you want to identify as whatever, there should be some kind of right saying that you should be able to do that. I do feel like if conservative people are going to be watching this, they can make the argument of, well, yes, we're a country of freedoms, but we still have to have standards. Yes, but you can ask everyone in the United States, everyone's going to have a different level of standards as far as how this country should be run. And that's kind of what makes America America, is that freedom to determine how free or oppressed you want to feel, what you want to identify as, all that kind of stuff. That being said, to the leftists watching this, we have these freedoms because of certain amendments and certain votes. And I believe if we keep voting for a certain group of people, eventually those rights get taken away. Some people might argue, well, if I keep voting for the right, look at Tennessee, for example. If I keep voting for the right, they're going to push like anti-transgender LGBT laws. Yeah, maybe. But if you all keep voting for the left, we'll lose our Second Amendment. And once the guns go away, then the government has the ability to do whatever the hell they want. And the four examples that I can give that of is Nazi Germany. They took away their guns, and once the guns were away, the Jews went to the Holocaust. Church was removed. God was removed. A lot of history was removed. Same thing happened in the Soviet Union. Same thing happened in communist China. Same thing happened in Cuba. And the thing about, if I'm just going to focus on Germany and the Soviet Union, Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union, is those two were politically extremely different. One's on the left, one's on the right. But they did the same thing. They both took away their guns from their people, and they both became dictatorships, just on different ends of the spectrum. But if there's one thing that could have prevented that, was people owning their own firearms to prevent those rights from being taken away. So I went over healthcare, LGBT. Oh, and one more question for the LGBT audience watching this. As I mentioned, there are a lot of genders out there that you guys come up with, recognize, whatever. Let's just say there's like over 900 genders, okay? What does the B in LGBT stand for? You didn't get mad, but it's literally in your guys' name. So, I know that last bit was a little bit mean, but on a serious note, I would like an explanation. I feel like a lot of people, including myself, need an explanation. I'm going to stop it here. And, wow, it's already 9:30. Oh, it was a quick day. And then I'd like to talk about some of the last topics. Stay tuned.